Joining us today from El Salvador is Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. Senator, welcome to Pod Save America.
Dan, good to be with you.
Senator, it's my understanding that you just tried to visit the prison in where Kilmar Abrego Garcia is being held. What happened when you tried to visit?
I did try to visit to check on his health, and I was stopped about 3 kilometers outside of the prison by soldiers who told me I could not proceed. You could see cars continuing to go by on the road, but they were ordered to stop me from going.
Now, we have seen videos, social media posts from Republican members of Congress who have been inside the prison recently. So it's pretty clear that it seems to me, at least, that you were being targeted because you were not a supporter of Trump's policy here. Is that, I assume that's your assumption as well?
I think that's fair. My request also has been to go see Kilmar. Republicans don't seem to care about the fact that he was illegally abducted and taken to CCOT. You know, the Trump administration seems to be celebrating that fact, and of course are ignoring the court orders to facilitate his return.
Now, it's not just you. No one has spoken to Kilmar since he was taken to this prison. Is that correct? Not his wife, not his family. Has his attorney spoken to him?
No, they haven't allowed anybody to speak with him. And that, of course, is a violation of international law. But that is the current situation. And I explained to the vice president of El Salvador yesterday that they're really being complicit in these illegal actions by the Trump administration, and illegal under U.S. law for lack of due process. But by not allowing him to have any contact with anybody, that's also a violation of international law.
As you mentioned, you met with the vice president yesterday. What did the vice president say when you requested that they return Kilmar to the United States?
Well, his basic response was that they had this deal with the Trump administration. The Trump administration was paying the government of El Salvador millions of dollars to detain him and others. And I explained that the courts of our country, including the Supreme Court by a 9-0 ruling, had ordered the Trump administration to help facilitate his release. You know, the president of El Salvador has said that, well, he doesn't have the power to smuggle, Kilmar back into the United States. And I pointed out to the vice president, we're not asking El Salvador to smuggle him in. We just want them to open the prison gate. And Attorney General Bondi did say the other day that they'd send a plane. I don't know if that offer still stands, but I want to make that distinction clear. El Salvador is a sovereign country. We don't think that they can, quote, smuggle him back to the United States. But what they can do is open the gates to the prison to somebody who's been illegally detained there.
And it also seems clear that the Trump administration has not asked for him to be returned. It sort of felt in the meeting with Bukele that we can't, it's up to him. He doesn't want to do it. So, that's the end of the matter. But they also haven't asked, right? There's no evidence that they have done anything to facilitate, correct?
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, the first question I asked of the American embassy team here has Washington, has the Trump administration given you any instructions to help facilitate his release? And the answer was no.
Obviously, in clear violation of the Supreme Court, the Fourth Circuit just weighed in on this. Have you had a chance to see that opinion?
I have a very strong opinion where they said essentially they backed up the federal district court judge and said that this violation of due process by the Trump administration goes to the very heart and foundation of our Constitution, a total violation of the due process rights. And they said, I'm reading here, that it should be shocking for all of us to also listen to the Trump administration's claim that since he's already left the country, they have no obligation to get him back. I mean, they admitted in federal court that they had erroneously abducted him and taken him to another prison. And instead of fixing the problem, the Trump administration fired the lawyer who told the truth in court, fired or put on administrative leave.
One of the theories, other than just pure cruelty, about why the Trump administration is so unwilling to address what is their own admitted error is that if Kilmar were to come home, he could talk about what he saw in that prison, which is notorious for torture, starvation, just absolute violations of human rights. Do you assume that to be the case as well?
I think the Trump administration wants to cover up all of their illegal activity and wrongdoing. That can certainly be a part of it. But they're lying through their teeth every day about this, the case, and trying to fool Americans as to what it's about. What this is about is stripping an individual of his rights to due process. And if you can do this for this individual, the rest of us watch out, because what bullies do is they pick first on the most vulnerable. And that's essentially what the Fourth Circuit just said today.
I know you're focused on getting Kilmar freed, but over the last 36 hours here, the Trump administration has engaged in a full-throated effort to try to smear his character, putting out evidence that claims he's a domestic abuser, comparing him to Osama bin Laden in one case, saying he's a proven gang member. What's your response to that effort?
Well, all I know is the federal judge in the case looked at the administration's claims regarding that he was in MS-13 and found them lacking. That's where the Trump administration should be providing any evidence they have, rather than just putting this out in the court of public opinion. Look, I want to be clear. I don't know every single fact here. What I'm vouching for is the system, due process. That's the forum in which these things are decided. And it is exactly that the Trump administration wants to avoid entirely.
So what happens now? What realistically can be done? What are you going to do next? What leverage do Democrats or others back home have in this matter, do you think?
Well, number one, I intend to keep a spotlight on this issue, because I do believe that, the government of El Salvador, at some point, I think the international community may also weigh in and just say what's happening here is illegal, becoming, the contracting out prison in a way that violates people's rights. But the Trump administration is going to be providing those monies to the government of El Salvador. And ultimately, Congress appropriates these funds. And so I'm certainly not going to appropriate one penny of American taxpayer dollars to the government of El Salvador to pay them for violating this individual's rights and violating the rulings of the United States courts with respect to his rights.
Are you coming home? Are you staying there much longer? What is your plan?
My plan is to come home either later this evening or tomorrow. I've had lots of meetings here. I also met with some of the human rights groups. I met with the lawyer, Kilmar's mother, and his wife, who's down here. In fact, he accompanied me to try to go see Kilmar in prison. He was also blocked by the soldiers when we made that effort. I also met with the U.S. Embassy team here to talk about bilateral relations between the United States and El Salvador. But I intend to either leave later tonight or tomorrow morning. But I can assure you, and I've assured the government of El Salvador, that I may be the first senator here or the first member of Congress. There will be more to come, because a lot is at stake for Americans in terms of protecting the right of due process for this individual, but really for every American when it comes right down to it, and every resident of the United States.
Senator Van Hollen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for what you're doing, and safe travels home.
Thanks so much. Thank you.